Okay, so another tip when you're talking about these really important talks with children, and this again, these talks really need to be happening with all ages, and they really can happen as early as you're diapering your child and you're talking about their body parts and that kind of thing. And it's just kind of gives you practice to keep on going. And as the age of the child grows, so do your talks. And then it doesn't become so uncomfortable, so arduous, and like, what do I talk about and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Again, I use dolls. Because it is something that they can relate to. It looks a lot like them. It has all the parts mostly. You can talk about, if you have to talk about something very specific, like if you have a questioning a child, if something happened, the doll is definitely going to be your tool to talk about that, because you can use an example and we can say, oh, but nobody touches you here, right? And then you can go into that, and it's something tangible that they're not just hearing, but they're processing and seeing and touching as well. We want to talk about uncomfortable situations and what that feels like. What does it feel to be uncomfortable? Sometimes when maybe grandma or auntie or uncle that lives in Michigan far, far away, when they come over, I don't really know them very well. And sometimes I have to give them a hug and a kiss. And that can kind of feel scary and uncomfortable because I don't really know them. I don't want them to touch me. So those are things that we happen in every day, right? We all have families, we all have close relatives, and it's our adult expectation that, well, I know this person is safe, so my child should trust them. But what are we really teaching? A confusing message, right? Because we're telling them not to hug and touch and talk to strangers, but this is a true stranger to them, somebody that they don't know is a stranger. So those are great ways to start to talk about how they're feeling, what uncomfortable is, what do you feel in your body when you're uncomfortable? And then bringing up situations. It was really uncomfortable for me when you guys closed the door when you were playing. Remember, the rule is to keep the door open. Those kind of things. We're not blaming anybody. We're not judging anybody. We're not telling our children that we don't trust them. We are setting clear boundaries to keep them safe, and they should be a part of that too. And you learn that early. Okay, so also another really important point is that typically, and we're not talking about like sexual assaults or anything like that, but if your child has been sexually abused, or a child who has been sexually abused, they will typically know their abusers, right? And so that isn't somebody that is going to come off as being a big bad wolf or a stranger. Groomers use manipulative ways to get access to that child, right? At any age, all ages of children. And so we want to express and share and talk about uncomfortable situations, because when you're actually in an uncomfortable situation is when you're confused and you don't know what to do. And even years later, we find that some people don't even know what's happening to them that time, and to be able to process and understand what that was, it takes a lot of time to do that. And so we want to give you as many tools now to be able to build that self-awareness for your child, to build your talks, and when they feel uncomfortable, they're going to feel more ready to come and talk to you about anything, because you've already opened that door, and that's a really important door to open. So continue those important talks about being uncomfortable. How does it feel? Give scenarios when, school settings, home settings, when you go out in public. Maybe, you want to start teaching them about that gut feeling, and that's really can be a hard thing to talk about. So start thinking about how maybe you might talk about those uncomfortable feelings with your little teenager, middle school, or little. Okay, so we are going to go into another tip.